If you just joined us, we've been taking a close look at Nigeria's power, works and housing sector. And our guest has been Nigeria's Minister of State 2 for Power, Works and Housing, Alhaji Suleiman Hassan. Join us again. Now let's look at one sad commentary that has really been of concern, public concern to Nigerians, and that's the issue of building collapse. What is responsible for this this high rate, this prevalence of building collapse lately?
There are so many reasons responsible for building collapses. What is generally believed is a building collapse is a function of either bad design or bad engineering. But I want to disagree. A building collapse may not necessarily be as a result of bad engineering or bad construction. Some of the actions that we do to the environment can cause building collapses, no human interference. Some of the actions of the clients, the owners of those buildings, can also be responsible for building collapses.
Now, what solution is the federal government coming up with to address this problem?
I give you an example. You go into any street, anywhere, you find a lot of private schools coming up. These were built maybe for residential purposes. So the number of human traffic within that particular building was factored in the design and in the construction. And you wake up one morning, that particular building has been turned into a school, into a worship place, with so much movement, so much number of persons in school, pupils run all over the place. It causes strain on the design itself. Prevalence of
Do we have the right policy to address this?
That is what I'm telling you. The clients are also a factor. You design a house, you go get an approval from the approving authority that you want a residence, and it turns out to be a place of worship, it turns out to be a school without recourse to the approval from the planning authority for them to factor in what's needed for the design of any particular structure. So in the initial instance, they gave you an approval, then you violated the approval. Yes, it behoves on them now to go and enforce on these regulations. But knowing the way we are and who owns such a property, it needs the real support of the political authority to enforce, to help the planning authorities enforce their own power on these clients, on the defaulting clients.
When you look at the power budget, year in, year out, we see several insertions, and it looks like a multiple entry of some of these projects. Because at the outset of this administration, the federal government assured Nigerians that many of these projects would be taken care of by concession plans. And this is not reflected in the budget. So we are wondering, should federal government still continue to invest such a huge amount on the power sector and other infrastructural sector?
Yes, we should be budgeting into such plans, because before the whole thing comes to fruition, the government must be seen to have done some things on ground. One, government will have to fund, for example, feasibility studies. Government will have to fund the initial survey and design. Government will have to fund initial environmental impact assessment for it to even have a design that can be taken to an investor to look at and agree on its viability, on the viability of the project, for even the investor to be interested in putting in his money.
Now, do you think the power purchase agreement needs to be reviewed? Because there seems to be a lot of controversy and a lot of lack of flow in the power supply chain.
It's not the issue of power purchase agreement being reviewed. It is the issue of the distributing company being able to deliver power to the ultimate consumer. That is where we have our weakest link, like I told you. You can transmit as much as what is generated, 7,000 megawatts, but a lot of power gets stranded. Like the other time we were saying, we have like 2,000 megawatts getting stranded, not reaching the distributors. One, because either the sensors of the distribution company did not capture people that are consuming. In other words, there's what we call power theft. People consuming electricity without paying for it, so they are not really on the radar of the distribution company. So those powers are lost. Some other power bill loss, again, is not metered. The estimated billing, the monies may not actually come back to the distribution companies. They also have their own problems, distributing companies. They have their own problems. They don't collect all the monies that they are supposed to collect from the end user. Why? Because they are not metered. Two, because they are not also factored into it. Because if you live in a rural community, one person may be metered, but 10 people may be getting power from that same supply source. To the distributing company, he doesn't know that that power is going to a consumer, but he still have to pay for it ultimately.
Now, 2019 is a year of reckoning when Nigerians will be taking an account of stewardship of this administration. What should be the expectations?
We have done a lot in all the sectors that you have mentioned. In roads, it is visible. Everywhere you go in this country, our roads are now motorable. They are safe. Constructions are going in all sectors of this country. We have made commitments to contractors. We have paid. Our people have been employed. In housing sectors, I told you, we are doing a lot. So many houses are going on in all the states of the Federation. In power, we have increased power. We have stabilized it. We are now looking for uninterrupted status. And I want Nigerians to now put our scorecard in these years between 2015 to date against the scorecard between 1999 and 2015. Put them on a scale and measure them within the scope of each administration.
Now, are you comfortable using failure as a standard? Because your administration has already from the outset condemned the previous administration. So there shouldn't be any basis of reference to the previous administration.
We are not using failure as a yardstick, but again, in good governance.
There is a
in good governance.
Okay, would it be right to say that this administration has performed creditably well when it comes to the previous administration, but is a missed call using global standard?
No,
there's no basis of comparison.
what I'm trying to say is we've had cause for people to compare us with the previous administration. What I say is that they've been in power between 1999 and 2015. We've been in power between 2015 and 2018. So in fair analysis, what have we been able to do in the 4 years? What have they been able to do in 16 years? But what I want to assure you is that as far as I'm concerned, this administration is a promise kept because we have done wonderfully well. When the president assumed office, he promised Nigerians incremental power supply. We have seen that. He promised stable power. We have seen that.
Okay, would it be right to say that this administration has performed creditably well when it comes to the previous administration, but is a missed call using global standard?
No. It's a promise kept with Nigerians.
The Honorable Minister of State 2 for Power, Works and Housing, Surveyor Suleiman Hassan Zama, thank you so much for making our time from your busy schedule to be part of this episode of Question Time. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Wenga. Thank you very much, Wenga. My pleasure.
And that's it on this episode of Question Time from Channels Television. What's the power supply situation at your location? Is it improving or deteriorating? Send us your comments on our social media platforms showing on your screen. Why not join us next week for another fresh episode of the show from Channels Television. Many thanks for watching. I'm Benga Ashuru. Bye for now.